Hello, good evening everyone, and welcome back to a mission a day. This is day 3, and today the mission we are going to attempt, let me look it up here in the plugin, is the Sputnik mission 3. Basically, get into a high orbit around Kerbal at a minimum altitude of 400 kilometers. All we need to know about that now. We have got 103,000 cronies, credits, or Kerbal dollars, whichever you would like to call that, so we can make a nice craft. Last video we researched the side decouplers, the radial decouplers, and this science package, and we now have batteries, another science unit, and something that I don't know the use of. So the rocket I made with this is the following, proudly titled the Mission 3 rocket. Its part count is steadily increasing at now 26 parts. Now remember, this has to get up to 400 kilometers, and here is our central first stage booster, augmented by 4 radially attached solid boosters. We are taking advantage of our newly researched technology, this side radial decoupler, that will allow us to jettison the dead weight of these boosters. Now, for our top stage we have a single fuel tank with the small lander engine, which will be used for orbital maneuvering and finalization of the trajectory. We have our Communitron antenna and 4 brand new batteries. Hopefully this will allow us to transmit back a little bit more data. 2 of the tried and trusted goo containers, and we have here the new science pod. I have no idea what it does. We will be finding out shortly as we go to the launch pad. I hope the rocket will wobble on its engine bell, because we still don't have launch clamps, which we'll be finding out right now. It's actually quite steady, rather good, and we're going to start out with trying out this materials bay. Observe it. The material shows little sign of change, though one of the samples appears to be judging you silently. Great, and we only get 20% of the information back if we transmit it, so we're going to trash this for now. And we're going to take 1 sample with it up in orbit and take that back. For now, I'm going to launch in a an equatorial orbit. I forgot which direction that is. I can figure it out by thinking. It's a westerly trajectory, and I'm going to do that because the rotation of the planet then gives you a little bit of extra momentum. Here on Kerbal, that works out to be about 200 meters per second now. By my calculations, which consist of me guessing the numbers, this rocket will be just about enough to reach the 400 kilometer circular orbit mark, so we are going to need every little bit of speed we can muster. Now if we open up the resource tab, we can see we brought along quite a few batteries, so we can ask Jeb how he's feeling and transmit that back home without any undue consideration for power wastage. So we've just done that, got us a few science points, not too many, about 1.7. That's not too many at all, but it's basically free science, so we can do that. This rocket is barely controllable. I'm getting the illusion of control, but not really. Jettisoning this final SRBs, and I think the rest of the way you have a nice idea of what I'm trying to say here is that you've seen a lot of launches, I'm guessing, so I'm going to fast forward this orbital insertion. Phew, what you saw me do there by opening up the mission tab is to actually select the mission. I'd forgotten to do that, but fortunately you can do that in flight. So we have, as you might have seen, we now have an apoapsis of 500 kilometers. Well, my phone is ringing, so I'm going to split this up in 2 parts. Right, so that's the call sorted. And right now I am just going to circularize this orbit. Oh, one very important thing before I do that is, of course, to activate the science goop. Activate the mystery pod. 4.4 science value, because we've done this again. We've done this already once, so it's not too valuable anymore. This means I'm just going to store it and not do this one too often again. The second pod is going to be reserved for high orbit, or at least I think 500 kilometers counts as a high orbit, and maybe that will give us a different reading. So here we are, going to round out the orbit using the maneuver node so we can see here in the flight scene just when that is done. Asking Jeb again what is up, as I've been doing quite a few times in the past few minutes, and he's just going to return it's very round. So this has all been scienced out, I do think. Let's have a look here. This should now be a somewhat circular orbit, and let's see what our mystery goo pod has to say about that. Observe the mystery goo. The goo feels right at home here in space. Great, so we're going to keep that, and we're going to have a look at our materials bay. Now this one, as we learned, is incredibly wasteful to transmit back. Oh, but it's also very, very rich in science points. The high radiation environment caused a few of the samples to glow. It looks like it would be fun to paint the rocket with this. Well, let's not do that. Keep the data. And this means that we are now in full science mode. We can ask Jeb one more time what he's feeling. Crew reporting in from space, 0.7 science value. Trash that. Right, so now we're going to have a look at the mission controller. The goal is finished, and now, hey, that's it already. So we don't even have to land. So we can finish the mission, done with that, get our money, and now we're just going to land, of course, because we want this science. Now, I'm not particularly of the inclination to aim. So I'm just going to reduce the trajectory until we intersect the atmosphere, and we let the laws of physics decide where we end up. In other words, Newton is at the helm. No, don't delete it. Here we go. Great. Turn that ship around, and again, I'm very sure you've seen how this ends up. And as we're coming back down to Kerbin here, we can reflect on what we have learned this mission. We have learned that probably most science, like this instrument bay, of this materials bay, these mystery goo containers and whatever else may lay in the future, will depend heavily on actually returning the stuff to Kerbin. We see the crew reports, they can be transmitted, the EVA reports can be transmitted for a 50% loss, but these goo observations and the materials bay, they can be transmitted for a heavy loss of 60 up to 80% even, so you really want to bring them back. And additionally, we have learned that Kerbin is boring. We want to go to different places. Just feathering the throttle. Yeah, this is a stellar landing as far as I'm concerned. Parachute broke off, but then again, we don't need that anymore. I'm of the inclination that we want to go to different bodies now. We've done 2 orbits around Kerbin, gathered a lot of science there, but of course the real science is to be done on different bodies, like the moon, Minmus, or the planets even. So after this, Jebediah has to, of course, plant his flag, take the surface sample, and then we are going to think about what mission to undertake tomorrow and which technologies to research for that with our new science. Mission 3, landing site. Historical. Right. So he should take his... No, I want him to take a surface sample. Wow. Desert sample. Lots of sand and rocks here. You're thankful that you've been in a climate-controlled environment because it sure looks hot out there. The sand is dry and loose, and it looks like it's going to take some effort to clean your gear afterwards. Smashing. Keep that data, Mr. Kerman. Gonna take an EVA report. Don't think a spacesuit was entirely necessary to get here, was it? Well, it did help against the sand, so we're going to keep that as well. And then we're going to move on to the Space Center to recover these craft. Get our science points and spend them in the science shop, or the R&D center if you want to use its fancy name. So the mission 3 here, recover it. We want to recover the vessel. We've got 25 science for the material study, we've got 10 science for the goo, we've got 4.4 science for the repetitive goo, and we have 1.7 science from a vessel returned from Kerbal orbit. Great. Now we want to recover Jebediah Kerman, and he's got about 10 science for us as well. Great, thank you very much, Jebediah. And before we're going to the R&D center, let's have a look at our mission control plug-in. We're doing quite alright on the money front. We're steadily increasing. We're at 123,000 credits. This means that should a mission go wrong, we will be able to afford it, probably. So if we look at the missions, we can now get our first moon mission. What do? We require sensor data. We want to get in orbit around the moon. And I'm thinking we should return. We should probably not bring an astronaut for this. There's nothing an astronaut is going to do. A basic set of sensors. Yes, just orbit the moon. So we're going to research technology that will let us send a probe instead of an astronaut. Now this will of course reduce our science value because we cannot send crew reports, but it will be a little bit safer, and the rocket will be lighter since the probe core, if I recall correctly, is a lot lighter than the command pod. So we'll be researching. If we research this, then that's it. For our science, we do need the science. What we're going to do is we're going to send a probe core with a lot of materials and goo bays. We can get this one, the big engine and the boosters, and this one. Yeah, we're going to do that. So first research this, the probe core. Oh, it's also very cheap compared to the command pod. Great, great. And we're getting the general rocketry. Great. Now this has unlocked for us aerodynamics, jet engines and the like. Here advanced stabilizers and another probe core. Great. And here on the rocket front we have large fuel tanks, radial liquid engines, and here's still the construction. I want the construction. Anyway, this is all for tomorrow. Thanks for watching A Mission a Day. See you tomorrow and have a nice day.